Hey guys, Cream Crazy here. Just thought I'd do a small little video. If you can't hear me, my voice is hoarse because I was at Progress Wrestling last night. Awesome stuff, by the way. Jim Smallman, you're a freaking ledge. Anyway, this little video here, I've got a little announcement to make. I've got my holiday in Australia coming up. I want to do one last big hurrah before I go to Australia for 3 weeks. There'll be 3 weeks of no vids, no opinions or anything, apart from occasional Facebook updating. So I want to leave YouTube behind for that time with something massive, because basically after Australia and then about, a month or so, I'm then going to go off to uni. Hopefully, if I get the right grades, which means my video content will be even less than that. So my plan is to, before I go to Australia, basically after I do the Money in the Bank review, I will do a Wrestling Rant special. Because I had this book idea about a year ago, which I was going to make wrestling from a fan's perspective, looking at the history of wrestling from its popularity in the 80s up until now. Different things and subjects will be covered, by my opinion, via events or insider stuff, that kind of thing. And I never really got it off the ground because I never felt I could do it. I mean, obviously I could, but there were some areas I could never reach. And one of the categories I had, who is the greatest wrestler of all time? And it's a very subjective thing, because I recently saw Aaron Rift of NoDQ.com do a top 25 WWE superstars of all time list, and that was so controversial it made me wonder, why am I doing one on a universal scale? Well, it's one of those things I've always wanted to do, and I want to do it because it'll set me a challenge, because I've got no work. I have no college work now. My A-level courses are finished. I have basically a month or so to do whatever the hell I want to do, and, well, cook proper meals, learn to use a washing machine, that kind of shit, to basically get ready for uni if I get to that point. So I want to do a video detailing this. Now, I have the original table and the criteria from that book idea, which I made specifically for this topic. And I made, based on Wikipedia articles, matches I'd seen, Hall of Fames across the board, not just WWE's ones, and I just looked for wrestlers that have had influence of any kind on a massive scale, whether it be in one country or many, and on many aspects of wrestling and so forth. I have a short list of 50. Now, I can understand there are some names here which are not going to be on this list. There are some which I would have wanted to include, but fuck it, they're not. So if you're going to complain, don't bother, because I have my reasons. For example, I didn't put Brian Pillman on this list, even though I probably would have if I had a saner mind. I haven't put Cena on this list because his career isn't over. I haven't put Punk and Danielson on for simple reasons. One, their careers are still going on. Even though they're bloody good, I wouldn't stick them on the list just yet, even knowing how good they are, which is something decent. There are probably a few others in my head, but I can't think of them right now because my throat's fucked. Anyway, this is the short list of 50, which hopefully after some research over the best part of a couple of weeks, I will narrow down to 25 and then narrow down to 10, making that video with those 10. So that should be something awesome for you guys, right? Here's the short list in full, and please note, this is my subjective wrestling knowledge opinion. This is not some bullshit I found on the internet, copied and pasted. I've done research looking at who I could possibly fit. Because remember, I did that video, one of my middle wrestling rounds between 13 and 20 something, was how to define a legend. And I had to feel a similar kind of way when putting these together. Of course, some of them you'd say, fuck it, why are they legends? But that's how it is. It's a very subjective opinion on wrestling. It is very subjective. I mean, there are some guys, I bet, who went to Progress last night who were not entirely convinced by it all. But then again, it is my favourite indie promotion for a fucking reason. I wouldn't be wearing the t-shirt if that wasn't the case. Anyway, back onto the subject at hand. This is the list. A list of 50. I don't know why I'm making wrong hands. Making the 50 out of my own hands. It doesn't work. Okay. It is in alphabetical order. I have not ordered it in any way just yet. Abdullah the Butcher Andre the Giant, Antonio Inoki, Bobo Brazil, Bret the Hitman Hart, British Bulldog, Bruiser Brody, Bruno Sammartino, Buddy Rogers, controversially in many eyes, Chris Benoit, but you know my view already. See the video I made at the end of last week and you'll see my point. Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, Dynamite Kid, Eddie Guerrero, Gorilla Monsoon, Gory Guerrero, Harley Race, Hulk Hogan, Jake the Snake Roberts, Jerry the King Lawler, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Jushin Liger, Kenta Kobashi. Despite one guy complaining that I hadn't seen many of the guy's matches, I know the influence he's already fucking had. Kurt Kowalski, Kurt Angle, Lou Thez, Mick Foley, Neil Mascaras, Mitsuharu Misawa, Randy Savage, Rey Mysterio Jr., I want to point that out, Ric Flair, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Rocky Johnson, Roddy Piper, Sabu, yes, shockingly, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Ted DiBiase Sr., the $1 Million Man, Terry Funk, The Great Muta, The Rock, The Sheik, The Undertaker, Tiger Mask 1, Triple H, Ultimo Dragon, Vader, and Vern Gagne. Now, there were some names going into my head the moment I read that list out, because there were guys like Karl Gotch, George Hankenschmidt, who, of course, made professional wrestling what it is today. There were a few others literally I've now just completely forgotten about. Fuck it. But those are two early wrestlers who I had in my head who I know wouldn't be on this list. And I just... it's little things like this. I will forget names at snap of a finger when it comes to wrestling sometimes. It's just bound to happen. But if you point out some names to me, I'll recognise them once you put them down. So what do you got to say about this? Comment section if you need them, because this is going to be a very controversial subject. There are 50 names there who you could probably say are synonymous with the development of where wrestling is now on a modern scale in multiple different countries. In fact, I made a list of how diverse this is in a way, just to show you. 29 Americans, 2 Britons, 7 Canadians, 1 Fijian, 1 Frenchman, 1 Italian, 7 Japanese men, and 2 Mexicans. Now, that does not seem too diverse to you, probably, but at the same time, it works for me. I mean, it's basing on... Oh, there's one guy I remembered I probably could have put on this list. 2 guys now I just remembered. Booker T and Arn Anderson. Maybe this is not the final shortlist. Maybe this is still a work in progress. I need to do a little more research in the next week or so. But the fact is, that's the shortlist. Then we get to the criteria of this. And this is the most important factor, because without this criteria, this list will not happen. I'm not just throwing it together on personal opinion. This is something where I'm going to take a long, hard look. I'm going to look up matches. I'm going to watch these people do their job, listen to the crowd reaction, analyze their legacies, and put it down in criterias, and then basically make an order on how the criteria together as a combined unit stacks up against others. This is a very, 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 very big critical thing I'm going to be doing here. Now, if I ever do make this book a reality, this will probably end up in it. Then again, it will probably change by that point, but I'll still have it there. The criteria stands as follows. 1. The number of championships won in their entire career, documenting specific titles won, not each reign, because I think it stands for everybody that if you're well-travelled and you've gone to many promotions and proven that you're a well-versed wrestler, winning as much as you can everywhere, that means more than winning a load of one championship. Now, I know Jerry the King Lawler has won a shitload of championships in Memphis. Doesn't bother me. He's still won a shitload in other places. Number 2, their in-ring ability. Did they innovate a great wrestling move? Did they have a distinctive style that became famous thanks to them? Have they become well known due to their in-ring ability and therefore have influenced many different wrestlers? That kind of thing all blends in together. What kind of... Did they innovate the brawling style, perhaps? Did they have an immense aggression that brought out a very sadistic submission style? A lot of things could come from that, and it'll take me watching matches to understand it. Some of them will be a lot harder to find, especially Buddy Rogers, Bobo Brazil, guys like that. That'll be quite difficult to find. Number 3, their popularity and mutual crowd reaction to them. Now, this could be a negative and a positive, because if you're hated, you can be universally loved because of that. Think about it. Classy Freddie Blassie was universally loved for being one of the most hated managers of all time, and one of the most hated wrestlers in his time as well. He's not on this list, but then again, his in-ring career was not well documented compared to his management. So you think about it. I have to listen to the crowd, see how they react to them. How big is that reaction? Negative or positive? I have to watch them as a heel and as a face. Well, not in the case of Ricky Dragon Steamboat, but in every other guy I'd have to say, look, face, heel. Would I be able to say there is a great reaction on one or both sides? It is definitely important when looking at it, because the mutual crowd reaction and their opinion of them will also factor in. At the time, that will factor in. So say you're looking at Bruno Sammartino in the late 70s, early 80s. I would look at articles from that time and judge whether along those matches he had, whether the popularity stacked up. I would not look at it in a retrospective view. Number 4, their longevity in wrestling. How long they've spent in terms of an actual active wrestling career. Because if the fact is, you can be in wrestling for a short amount of time and make a massive impact. You can be in there for a long period of time and make no impact whatsoever. It's little things like that which can tip the scales for or against a wrestler. And that's why I got actually quite a big list. Some guys have been in wrestling for over 40 years. Some haven't. Some have only been in for upwards of about 15 years. So you think the difference, and you wonder just by analysing their matches, analysing their reaction, analysing their legacy, how the longevity really stacks into their legacy as a whole. Number 5, their legacy on wrestling in their home country or state, because there are some American wrestlers, 29 of them are on here, where I basically think they went round the regionals in the 60s, 70s, mid to early 80s probably, made a huge impact in either their own state or others, and basically didn't make it national, because there wasn't a national promotion until WWE came along and slaughtered the competition. So you think, I'd be able to say, for a guy, well, like the Sheik, who was shortlisted, one of Michigan's most well-known wrestlers, I think I'd put that down there. I have to look through my own notes to prove what I'm saying is legitimate. Yep, one of Michigan's most well-known, and in terms of influence, one of the best-known sportsmen from there around the world. So that works out pretty well for him. So you think, that kind of thing, it works. But you've got to understand, if their influence reaches national level, and then global, that's when you start ranking it. You think, go from state to national to global, and then work your way from there, just figuring out where everyone is placed. It's basically like a giant ladder. It all fits. And then finally, probably the most important piece, their lasting legacy in pro wrestling. Now, this is probably going to be the one thing that will sway my opinion when making the final list. Because I actually thought, I put Hulk Hogan's one, I've already got quite a bit down on. I mentioned, I'm going to read this out because I don't know where he's going to end up, that he made US wrestling a nationwide cultural aspect of life, all due to the popularity of wrestling exploded due to him. And even though he may have been one of the most hated men, what he did in the late 20th century was unprecedented. You think that's pretty awesome. But at the same time, I also have to factor in the negatives, and I've already mentioned them in a previous video if you haven't seen it. This is a factor, especially for the Chris Benoit scenario, because I had to look at that. In the legacy in ring, and then also the legacy that his death has left, in which wrestling has been forever altered, it's forever changed, and I had to factor that in to where I could place Benoit in a short list of 50 in a greatest wrestling of all time list, because I won't be a miserable douchebag and place him somewhere low. He's on the same criteria as everyone else. He will get the same treatment. Do not hold it against him in death for all sakes. And I feel it's the hardest thing to do, to judge a man's legacy, but it's easier, actually, when you put everything of the other 5 criteria together. It'll be easier for me, it'll be easier for you to judge it once I say, and actually, to be honest, that this criteria will hopefully help you understand, if you're doing something like this, what's the best thing to do. Because I could never make a list of anything because of personal taste. I have to literally do this kind of thing. And people will say I go into overkill trying to make something like this for you guys. That's what I do. I put devotion into something like this because, to me, this matters. This is for the first time I'm ever going to make a comprehensive best of all time list. I've never done it before, so this is a little challenge for my holiday. I've got nothing to do, I might as well do it. Guys, if you want to submit any names you believe I've left off this shortlist, recommend them down there and I might be swayed. Give me links to pages online. Give me title win listings from all across their repertoire. Give me evidence of in-ring styles. Give me a list of evidence of their legacy. I may be swayed to remove some people who I feel are not as significant. It's a very subjective thing, but this is a universal thing. This is not my personal opinion. I'm trying to make a comprehensive list, which will be narrowed to a top 10. Of course, 50 is a very subjective amount. I can't do everything. I can't put every single wrestler that's ever been on there. There are some guys who you would say belongs there, but I would look at it and say, okay, the legacy the stuff stacks up. But in relation to everyone else here, where does he stand? And that's a problem. And I haven't put any women on this list either because this is a male list. If it was a female list, we may be looking at something different. But, yeah, it's a very big thing. I've got planned for the next couple of weeks to just look through matches of each person on here. Some I know in my head I want to look at. Some I have no clue. So, this is a work in progress that will be here on the 22nd of July without fail. I am making sure that I get this done. If not, then it will be done on the morning of July 23rd because I leave for Australia in the evening that day. So it'll be in that time frame. So that is something you guys can look forward to, along with my Money in the Bank review and a top 10 WWE wish list, which I have coming up the week after the June Q&A this weekend and the Friday flashback. So you've got a lot to look forward to from me after 2 months of relative inactivity. I hope you're looking forward to this, guys, because I am. I'm getting hyped. Wrestling is entering my bloodstream once again, and I'm looking forward to it. Guys, I've been Cream Crazy. You've been people watching. This has been my major announcement, and I will see you next time. Cheers.